Picture your last meal that had meat on the plate. Chicken, beef, maybe fish. Now ask yourself something odd. When was the last time you ate a lion, or a wolf, or an eagle? Never. Not once, not anywhere on earth, not in any culture, not even in the worst famines. That feels normal to you. And it shouldn't, because humans will eat almost anything. Insects, organs, fish buried and left to rot for months. Blood. But predator meat is the one line almost nobody crosses. The flesh of the animals that hunt other animals, it isn't squeamishness and it isn't taste. It's something your body worked out long before science could explain it. Most people assume it's just about danger. Too hard to catch. Too risky to fight. That's not the real reason. The real reason is sitting inside the predator's own body, built up quietly over its entire life. And when explorers finally ignored the warning, some of them didn't survive to write it down properly. This is called biomagnification, and once you understand it, the food chain never looks the same again. Start with a simple question. What happens to a toxin that a small fish absorbs from the water? Nothing dramatic. A trace so small it's basically invisible. But that small fish gets eaten by a bigger fish, and the toxin doesn't disappear. It moves into the bigger fish and stays. That fish gets eaten by a bigger one still, and every time the toxin carries forward. It never resets to zero. So what happens at the very top of the chain? At the apex predator? It inherits everything. Every trace from every animal it has ever eaten, stacked on top of itself across its whole life. Scientists call this trophic magnification. The higher up the chain you go, the more concentrated the load becomes. A predator isn't just meat. It's a walking archive of every toxin its prey ever touched. And a human eating that predator is eating the final, most concentrated version of all of it. But that's only half the story, because some of what accumulates isn't pollution at all. It's built into the predator's biology on purpose. Take the Arctic. Take the polar bear. Imagine you're a European explorer, centuries ago, stranded in the freezing dark with supplies running out. Someone kills a polar bear, and the meat is a lifeline. But the local Arctic hunters warn you about one specific part, the liver. They've known for generations. Don't touch it. Not even starving. You assume it's superstition, old folklore, nothing more. So what happened to the ones who ignored it? In 1597, a Dutch crew stranded on a frozen island ate polar bear liver and within hours were violently ill, convinced they were dying. In 1853, an American explorer wrote about eating bear cub liver and dismissed the old warning as nonsense, right up until he was doubled over with dizziness and sickness. And in the Antarctic in 1912, 2 explorers were forced to eat their sled dogs' livers to survive after a teammate vanished into a crevasse. Neither man came through that journey unharmed. So what made that one organ so dangerous? Vitamin A. Not a mild excess. An almost unbelievable amount. A single polar bear liver can hold enough vitamin A to poison dozens of people at once. Your own liver stores modest reserves of it. A polar bear's liver stores it by the millions of units, because the bear eats seals, and seals eat fish, and fish absorbed it from algae. And every step up the chain packed more in. One serving crosses the line from nutrient to poison, and it isn't only vitamin A. Some researchers point to heavy metals like cadmium building up through the exact same chain. Either way, both land on the same idea. The predator's body is a concentrator, a living storage tank for everything toxic that passed through its prey. Then modern science confirmed what history had been quietly saying for generations. Arctic communities never ran a lab test. They didn't have the word biomagnification, but they knew the pattern. Eat the liver of the animal at the top, and people sicken or die. So the rule became sacred, passed down, never broken. That isn't superstition. That's centuries of trial and error compressed into a taboo, because passing it on as folklore was easier than passing it on as a chemistry equation. And here's the strange part. The same warning appears almost everywhere predators exist, across cultures that never contacted each other, on different continents, in different centuries. The same instinct, again and again. Leave the apex predator alone. That's a lot of coincidence for something nobody could yet measure. Now the part that reframes everything, because it isn't only about poison stacking up. It's also about what predator meat physically is. Prey animals, cows, deer, rabbits, build calm, steady muscle. They rest, they graze, they lay down soft fat. Predators get none of that. A predator's life is bursts of violence, sprinting, fighting, starving for days, then gorging. Every muscle fiber is shaped by survival stress rather than stillness. Imagine being the animal chasing dinner across open ground, heart hammering, adrenaline flooding your blood over and over for years. That stress chemistry doesn't just evaporate after the hunt. It settles into lean, tough, tightly wound muscle. Meat that's harder to chew, harder to digest, and far less appealing than the soft, marbled flesh of an animal that spent its life quietly eating plants. Compare that to your own table. You don't crave lean, stringy, gamey meat. You crave tenderness and fat, the things your body reads as safe, easy calories. Prey animals evolved to hand you exactly that. Predators never did. They weren't built to be eaten. They were built to do the eating. But there's a second danger beneath the toxins and the tough meat, and it's more personal. Disease. Here's a question most people never think to ask. Which animals are biologically closest to you? Not chickens? Not cows? Predators? Especially the ones that hunt warm-blooded mammals, exactly as we are warm-blooded mammals ourselves. And that closeness is precisely what makes their meat riskier. A pathogen that thrives in a fellow predator, a fellow meat eater, a fellow mammal has a far shorter path into your body than one sitting quietly inside a plant-eating prey animal. Then add parasites. A predator carries not just the toxins of everything it ate, but the parasites of everything it ate, layered generation after generation, exactly like the toxins. So every bite of predator meat isn't one animal's risk. It's the risk of an entire food chain compressed into a single meal. Humans worked this out the hard way, long before anyone understood a single word about pathogens or parasites. People who avoided predator meat simply survived more often than people who didn't. Over thousands of years, that pattern stopped being a personal choice and hardened into instinct, into disgust, into taboo. You didn't learn to avoid lion steak from a textbook. You inherited the aversion, handed to you by every ancestor who didn't die from ignoring it. So here's the twist most people never expect. You always assumed predators were off the menu because they were too dangerous to catch. But the real danger was never the claws or the teeth. It was what was already sitting inside them, waiting quietly, long before the hunt began. Every fish that a smaller fish ate, every seal that the bear ate, every year of stress chemistry burned into tightening muscle. Every parasite passed silently up the chain, all of it concentrated and handed straight to whoever eats it last. And that's the part that turns back on you. Because, in a sense, you're a predator too. You sit near the top of your own food chain. Somewhere out there, a scientist could ask the exact same question about you. What has quietly, invisibly concentrated inside your body from everything you've eaten across your entire life? The polar bear never chose to become a walking warning sign. It just lived at the top. You live at the top too. The only difference is that you get to choose what climbs up the chain and settles inside you. The bear never had that choice. You still do.